The tiny key that sank the Titanic. Introduction. Everyone knows the story of the Titanic. It is the most famous ship in history. We know about the luxury. We know about the band playing music until the end. And of course, we know about the iceberg. If I ask you, why did the Titanic sink? You will answer, because it hit an iceberg. And you are right. But why did it hit the iceberg? The Atlantic Ocean is huge. The Titanic was equipped with the best technology of 1912. It had experienced officers. It had professional lookouts. So how did they fail to see a mountain of ice directly in front of them until it was too late? The answer might surprise you. It wasn't because of a curse. It wasn't because the captain was drunk. Historians believe that a massive part of the tragedy was caused by one tiny, insignificant object. A key. A simple metal key that fit into a locker door. Because this key was missing, the crew was blind. Because this key was missing, 1,500 people lost their lives. In this video, we are going to look beyond the iceberg. We are going to investigate the butterfly effect of the Titanic. We will learn the vocabulary of navigation, disaster, and fate. This is the story of the missing key. Chapter 1. The Unsinkable Dream. Let's go back to April 1912. The RMS Titanic was a technological miracle. It was the largest moving object made by human hands. The press called it Unsinkable. It had swimming pools, gyms, Turkish baths, and grand staircases. It was a floating palace. The captain was Edward Smith. He was a legend. This was going to be his final trip before retirement. He wanted it to be perfect. But before the ship even left the port of Southampton, a small change happened in the crew. And this small change triggered a chain of tragic events. The officer shuffle. Originally, an officer named David Blair was the second officer of the Titanic. He was very proud. He knew the ship perfectly. He had the keys to all the important lockers in his pocket. But at the last minute, the White Star Line, the company that owned the Titanic, decided to bring in a more experienced officer, Henry Wilde, from another ship. This meant everyone had to move down one rank. Poor David Blair was told, "Sorry, David, you are not going on the Titanic. You have to leave the ship." David Blair was disappointed. He packed his bags quickly. He left the ship in a rush. And in his rush, he forgot something. He forgot that he still had the key to the crow's nest locker in his pocket. Small mistakes often have huge consequences. I remember once I made a tiny mistake at an airport. I just didn't listen to an announcement, and it cost me hundreds of dollars and ruined my trip. I told that story in my video, The Mistake That Cost Me My Flight, and trust me, forgetting something small can ruin everything. But for David Blair, this mistake didn't just cost money. It cost lives. Chapter 2. The Importance of Binoculars. Why was this locker so important? What was inside? Inside that locker were the binoculars. Vocabulary check. Binoculars. These are special glasses that make faraway objects look closer. Sailors use them to see ships, land, or icebergs. Without the key, the locker was locked. The crew could not open it. They tried to find other binoculars, but the Titanic was a new ship. Everything was disorganized. So the binoculars stayed in the dark, behind a locked door. Now, let's meet the lookouts. These are the men who stand in the crow's nest, the small basket at the very top of the ship. Their job is to watch the ocean and shout if they see danger. On the night of April 14th, 1912, the lookouts were Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee. It was a freezing cold night. The temperature was near zero. There was no moon. The ocean was pitch black, and the water was perfectly calm. Why is calm water bad? Usually waves crash against an iceberg. This creates white foam. The white foam is easy to see at night. But because the water was flat, there was no white foam. The iceberg was just a black shadow against a black sky. Frederick Fleet was standing there, shivering. He was using only his naked eyes. Later, at the official investigation, Fleet was asked a question. Judge, if you had binoculars, could you have seen the iceberg sooner? Fleet, yes, sir. Judge, how much sooner? Fleet, enough to save the ship. Chapter 3. The critical 37 seconds. At 11:39 p.m., Frederick Fleet saw something. A black shape directly in front of the ship. It was getting bigger and bigger. He rang the warning bell 3 times. Clang! 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 He picked up the phone to the bridge. Fleet, iceberg, right ahead! The officers on the bridge panicked. Hard to starboard! Turn left. Reverse the engines. Stop! The giant ship began to turn. Slowly. Too slowly. It takes a long time to turn a ship that weighs 52,000 tons. The crash. 37 seconds later. Scrape. It wasn't a big explosion. It was a long, grinding noise. The iceberg cut a line along the side of the ship. It opened up the metal plates like a tin can. If Fleet had binoculars, he could have seen the ice 30 or 60 seconds earlier. If they had 60 more seconds, the ship would have turned safely. They would have passed the iceberg. The passengers would have continued sleeping. The Titanic would have arrived in New York. David Blair's key was the difference between life and death. Chapter 4. The Swiss cheese model. Other factors. Now, to be fair, the key was not the only reason. Disasters are rarely caused by one thing. Usually it is a combination of bad luck. This is called the Swiss cheese model. Imagine many slices of cheese. Each slice has holes. Problems. Usually the holes don't line up, so you are safe. But on the Titanic, all the holes lined up perfectly. Hole 1. The speed. The Titanic was going very fast, almost at full speed, 22 knots. The captain wanted to arrive in New York early to impress the press. If they were going slower, they could have turned faster. Hole 2. The rivets. Recent science shows that the rivets, the metal pins holding the ship together, were not strong enough. They were made of low-quality iron. When the ship hit the ice, the heads of the rivets popped off, opening the holes. Hole 3. The bulkheads. The ship had watertight compartments, but the walls, bulkheads, didn't go all the way to the top. When the water filled one room, it spilled over the wall into the next room, like an ice cube tray. So, yes, the ship had flaws, but without the missing key, none of these flaws would have mattered, because they wouldn't have hit the ice. Chapter 5. Human Memory and Responsibility. Let's think about David Blair again, the man who forgot the key. Imagine how he felt when he read the newspaper. Titanic sinks, 1,500 dead. And then realizing, the key is in my pocket. He kept that key as a souvenir. He gave it to his daughter. Today, it is in a museum. It is a heavy burden to carry. Why did he forget? He was rushed. He was stressed. He was thinking about leaving the ship. This is a lesson for all of us. When we are stressed or rushing, our memory fails us. We forget keys, we forget passports, we forget instructions. If you want to understand how to improve your memory so you don't make mistakes like this, check out my video, how to remember everything. It won't help you navigate a ship, but it will help you in daily life. Chapter 6. The Tragedy. Why so many died. The sinking itself took 2 hours and 40 minutes. It was slow, and then it was fast. The tragedy was made worse by one more missing thing. Lifeboats. The Titanic had enough lifeboats for only half the people on board. Why? Because the designers thought the ship was unsinkable. They thought lifeboats were ugly and took up too much space on the deck. They thought lifeboats were only for transferring people to a rescue ship, not for saving everyone at once. Also, the crew didn't know how to use them. The first lifeboat left with only 28 people. It had space for 65. People didn't want to get in. They thought, it is safer on the big ship than in the tiny boat. They realized too late that the big ship was doomed. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic broke in two and disappeared under the water. 1,500 people fell into the freezing water. They didn't die from drowning, water in lungs. They died from hypothermia, cold. The water was -2 degrees Celsius. You can survive for only 15 to 30 minutes. It was a tragedy of arrogance. Mankind thought it had conquered nature. Nature proved us wrong. Chapter 7. Vocabulary Review. Checking the words. This is a sad story, but it is important history. Let's review the English vocabulary we learned. 1. Binoculars, the glasses for seeing far away. 2. Crow's nest, the high place on the mast for lookouts. 3. Collision, a crash. The collision with the iceberg. 4. Unsinkable, impossible to sink. An ironic word now. 5. Lookout, the person whose job is to watch for danger. 6. Lifeboat, the small boat used for emergencies. Conclusion. The lesson. The story of the Titanic is not just about an iceberg. It is about a series of small, human errors. A captain going too fast. A builder using cheap iron. And a man named David Blair, who walked off the ship with a key in his pocket. It teaches us that details matter. It teaches us that we should never be too confident. Unsinkable. And it reminds us that history can turn on the smallest, tiniest hinge. If you found this mystery interesting, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Do you think you would have survived the Titanic? Would you be brave enough to jump into the cold water? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember to always check your pockets for your keys.